If you have a bookkeeper that says, I can't handle your payroll or anything like that, please run. That is a really bad red flag.
It is actually irresponsible for me as a CEO to not know what the inflow or outflow of money is going to be in 3 to 6 months. I need to know now if we're projected to be in the red in a month or 3 months. It is so risky, and I even use the word irresponsible as a CEO to not have that level of insight on the business when you're responsible for other people's salaries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figure Educator Podcast. My name is Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas, former teacher, former principal, Harvard grad turned full-time entrepreneur. I am CEO and founder of Seven Figure Educator, where we help educators just like you package their brilliance into a seven-figure education consulting business. This episode is super special because I have someone whom I've known for a little hot minute, and they have such a unique level of expertise that we all as business owners can take advantage of, leverage to be able to grow our own understanding when it comes to business finances. So I'm super excited to invite to the Seven Figure Educator Podcast, Nacondra Moran, who is CEO of Exceptional Tax Services. Welcome, Nacondra.
Hey, Erica. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. So I'm going to kind of frame up how we know each other, as well as people could probably assume okay, Exceptional Tax Services, probably she in here doing taxes. And that is like a slither of what you do. But to kind of frame up how we know each other, what you do in business to kind of set the stage for this conversation, because I want people leaving this conversation more empowered around their business finances. And you're the perfect person to be able to have that conversation with to get to that result. So we met.
We go way
back.
Yeah.
Do you remember the year? Because
I was trying to think. Was it right before COVID? Or around that time, for sure.
Yeah, so the very first bookkeeper I have ever had in my business was Nacondra. So I came to Nacondra with a spreadsheet, y'all, okay? I was pulling up with a spreadsheet, and it might have been from an app, y'all. I was pulling up with girl, I think I need help. And I vividly remember I called QuickBooks because I had QuickBooks, and I called QuickBooks because I'm like, oh, something's not right with my books. And I called QuickBooks, and they were like, oh, it's because you haven't reconciled your books. And I was like, oh, can you show me how to do that? And girl, it took 15 minutes. And then they were like, okay, that was just one transaction. I was like, oh, I am not doing this. I was like, I guess I need a bookkeeper.
Oh my God.
And I pulled up to you. I was like, because at the time we were in a shared business community. Yes. And so I knew that those were services that you provided.
Yeah.
And what I was really impressed with, because, there's lots of people who do bookkeeping, but I was like, oh, she used to work for the IRS. So I was like, oh, I know she know her stuff. And so that's how this kind of blossomed and bloomed, where I guess now it's been 5 or 6 years that we've been in each other's ecosystems.
Yeah.
And so much of my financial foundation I have to attribute to you, because, girl, I was pulling up with a spreadsheet can you help me and figure this out? So tell people a little bit around your background and what you do at Exceptional Tax Services.
Yeah, and Erica, you grew so fast.
Girl.
You grew so, when I think about that moment to where you are now, you grew so fast. I love it. So I am Nacondra. I'm the owner of Exceptional Tax Services, and I've been in business since 2016. Originally started from the IRS. I worked with them for about 4.5 years, and I created my business because I just really wanted freedom and flexibility. As I started to grow and have children and things started to evolve, I really just wanted to be self-employed. And so through that process, I eventually branched out, started freelancing, and then I grew my business. So now Exceptional Tax Services, short for ETS. We do bookkeeping, we do tax prep, and we do tax planning. And we have been in business almost a decade, so 9 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful, so
I
beautiful.
know.
And I think what's really special around what you do is, you know, I've talked about a couple times on the podcast around like the different people you need on your money team
Yeah.
of like bookkeeper versus tax preparer versus, you know, tax strategist, tax planning.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you all show up in the marketplace of being able to provide that kind of comprehensive support, because there's some bookkeepers that are out in the marketplace that really don't play in the like tax preparation bucket, and they
Right.
really can't advise when it comes to tax planning.
Right.
And so like I actually would love to kind of hear from you, like, because I feel like that's unique, but given that, you know, you knowing the sector better than I do, like how
Yeah.
unique is that when it comes to a bookkeeper being able to wear the different hat of like preparing taxes and or tax strategy?
Yeah, we are definitely dispersed. And I would say that a lot of entrepreneurs who come to me, I get all kind of questions. So I get the bookkeeper questions, I get the financial advisor questions, I get the CFO questions, because really there's not a good separation of what we all do. And a lot of that is because there are businesses, like for example, myself, where we handle maybe 2 or 3 within that financial professional realm. And so as a result of that, there's a lot of overlap. But you do have a lot of bookkeepers who just do bookkeeping, and they are really just going to do like that day-to-day work. If you were to ask them like a tax question or CFO question, they may not be able to go that in depth with you. Really, they may just be able to help you with that day-to-day stuff and making sure your financials are good. So I'd say that's a very common misconception in our industry of like what we all do, what arena, and I guess you can call it like scope, to really try to figure out, okay, what do I actually need on my money team? Because especially like as you're growing your business, there's different levels to it, right? There's a level where you need a bookkeeper. It's a level where you need a tax prep, like someone to prep your taxes, somebody to plan for your taxes, CFO, financial advisor. And as you are growing your business, you try to figure out exactly what is it that I need.
Mm-hmm. So what would you were starting to kind of name this, and it's actually interesting because this is one of the episodes that we prepared, and now that we have you here, I'm like, yo, we could go even deeper in this topic of like order of operations in terms of like those financial money team.
Yeah.
And like, and this is actually what I'm seeing happen more and more with folks in our community, where they come to me asking for CFO recommendations, and they're like multiple 6 figures. And I'm like, you don't need a CFO, but you think you need a CFO because you're having cash flow issues.
Yeah.
But your cash flow issues are not a result of not having projections. Your cash flow issues are a result of like you are undercharging and underpriced.
Yeah.
And so you actually need to increase your prices.
Yeah.
But there's something around like, people assume if my money funny in my business, I need a CFO, when actually that's not the indicator of when to bring that person on your team. So talk through what is from an order of operations, like when do you need a bookkeeper?
Yeah.
When do you need like tax planning? And then when does the CFO come into play? Hey y'all, I want to take a quick moment to pop in. I know the episode's getting really, really juicy, but I could not miss the opportunity to make sure that you know that we are headed to Atlanta October 3rd through 5th for Seven Figure Educator Live. This is my 3-day live event. It is the only 3-day live event for education consultants who are out here making a big impact and getting a big bank. And even if you feel like your bank ain't that big yet, I want you in the room, because that's how your bank gets bigger, okay? I have curated a very special 3-day agenda that includes powerhouse speakers, 7, 8, 9-figure speakers, intentional networking to find your people, to find your next opportunity. Y'all, we're getting ready to take the city over, and we're taking it over at a 5-star property, okay? Meet me in Atlanta, October 3rd through 5th. Grab your ticket by heading to sevenfigureeducator.com. I'll link it in the show notes, and I'll see you there.
Yeah, and I would even say, like, to what you just said, that person may not need a CFO. They may need, at the most basic level, a business coach and maybe a bookkeeper. right? They don't necessarily need a CFO. So I would say, you need a bookkeeper when you are making consistent income. I don't think that there is always a set amount of income that you have to receive. Some people say 5 to 10,000, 100,000, 50,000. I'd say that depending on your industry, you may need one sooner rather than later. But I would say when you get into the realm where you are making consistent income, you need to really be looking at a bookkeeper. Before you hire, you need to be looking at a bookkeeper. Like before you even go and branch out into like that hiring stuff, that payroll stuff, even seeking like funding and all of that stuff, a lot of that stuff requires a bookkeeper. And so and naturally you'll know it because you will feel lost when it comes to like your numbers. You'll feel like you don't know what you don't know and that you are missing like a critical piece in your business. And that's one of the indicators that a lot of entrepreneurs feel. So I would say the bookkeeping piece is that those are signs that you need a bookkeeper. All right, we're gonna go to tax prep. All right, so for tax prep, I would say tax prep is levels to it because you don't necessarily have to be self-employed to need a tax preparer. Like you have rental properties, rental businesses, investments, all types of things that can make your taxes complex to where you need a tax preparer. So I would say if you are someone who struggles with taxes, period, regardless of whether you have a business or not, you need a tax preparer. But as you are growing your business, you definitely need tax planning. And I would say as your business starts to make consistent income, 5,000 months or more, I think that's a really good indicator that you need one. And the reason why is because when you are making money being self-employed, when you are working and getting a W-2, you get all your money, like you are getting your paycheck after they take out taxes. They take out Social Security, they take out Medicare, they already kind of do all of that stuff for you. Versus when you're self-employed, it just doesn't work like that. You're getting everything in your pocket. And so ultimately, you are responsible for planning around that. You are taxed on that. And so you have to plan around it. So I would say definitely sooner rather than later, you need a tax preparer and planner for sure.
Now, what about the CFO part? Like at what stage? So I would love to hear you define what a CFO does, because I think there's some like confusion when people say they need a CFO and then I ask why, I'm like, that actually ain't the role of a CFO. So like, how would you define a CFO? And then what stage of business or what are some of the indicators from a business standpoint when a CFO makes sense?
So I would say the CFO handles high-level strategy. So the bookkeeper is going to handle like that day-to-day stuff. It's going to make sure your invoices are being sent out, your receivables are being tracked, how you're paying people, all of that stuff is being done so that you can financially transfer that to a tax preparer, somebody to do your taxes. Your CFO likely may not even do taxes. So the CFO is going to really turn your numbers into a story. They will likely help you, especially as you are trying to hire with the strategy piece. And so for me, I would say a CFO is definitely when you are growing significantly. You likely have a team. You likely have, because the CFO is generally not coming on your team, they're outsourced and they're working a certain amount of hours with you per month. So I would say as you are really growing your team and you have really, definitely, I would even say S Corp, not as much as sole proprietor. I think those would be some indicators that you could seek out a CFO for your business.
So I think for me in my journey, I brought on a CFO after Seven Figures.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest need was really like, oh, there is money going in and out at such a rapid pace that like the health of my business isn't just based on how much money I make per month. It's like, oh, I need somebody to see 3 months out, 6 months out of based off of cash flow, based off of historical data, based off of accounts receivables. Like, what are the projections?
Yeah.
Because I now have what I used to make as a teacher, I now spend a month in payroll.
Yeah.
And it is actually irresponsible for me as a CEO to not know 3 months out, given the fact that I don't pay just for my salary, but other people's salary.
Yeah.
It's irresponsible for me to not know what the inflow or outflow of money is going to be in 3 to 6 months. I need to know now if we're projected to be in the red in a month or 3 months, or if it's June, if November is going to be a red month. Like, do I have enough reserve for that? Like, maybe I need to do a cash injection now. So it's really that forward thinking that I think in an earlier stage of business, you can get away with not being super sophisticated around that.
Yeah.
But I think once you cross that 7-figure mark for sure, it's like, it is so risky, and I even use the word irresponsible as a CEO to not have that level of insight on the business when you're responsible for other people's salaries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Given those lanes that we talked about, what would you define as kind of like the secret sauce zone of genius that you all play in?
So I would say out of all the money professionals, which I would label them, and I mean, there's more, but I would say bookkeeper, tax prepper, accountant, CFO, financial advisor. I would say that ETS, Exceptional Tax Services, is within the bookkeeper and the accountant role. So we don't do CFO services, and we are not financial planners.
Yep. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, that's really the only reason why I had to leave Nacondra is I grew to like CFO services, and I was like, girl, you don't do CFO? She was like, no, girl, that ain't my lane. I was like, I respect it, 100% respect it. But I think this is what's interesting, and I think this is why I appreciate and value our relationship so much, because the CFO partner that I moved to, they were comprehensive and have different departments to where they have a bookkeeping department, they have a financial preparation department, they have a CFO department. So there's actually a different person over those things.
Yeah.
And the first year that I was going into my tax preparation with them, I was like, I don't feel comfortable. Like, we had only been working like 2 or 3 months together. And I mean, I had no like red flags or anything, but I was like, I don't feel comfortable given the implications tax preparation not just has on, my business, but as a real estate investor, the like role that it plays. I don't feel comfortable handing that over to somebody after just working 2 or 3 months together.
Yeah.
I was like, I sent the contract email. I said, I know, girl, I know, I know you don't do my books no more, but can you do my taxes for me? Because I trust you, and like, I'm with this new team that I don't want to move it over to them just yet. It's only been a couple of months. And you were like, well, we got you. We'll take care of you. And as always, as you've done, like, you held us down. But I just say that's an example of like, from, stages of business and, speaking to the relationship, but also how your team might have different people, right? And how it may not fall under one umbrella,
right?
In the wheelhouse that you all play in,
right?
So let's kind of get into like the nitty gritty of like the bookkeeping lane and kind of talking through some of the things that business owners need to be really prepared for. So let's define clean books versus messy books.
Okay.
Like, what, from a bookkeeper's perspective, what would you say are like, girl, these is the raggedy books. These are like what messy books look like, or attributes of messy books. And then on the flip side of what do clean, accurate, clear books, what would you say? How would you describe that?
So I would say that clean books are accurate, meaning it is a correct and clear representation of what has come into your business and what has come out. So it's very clear and it's true, right? It is organized. I would say you would be able to clearly see what the business has brought in from a revenue perspective and all of the expenses that's labeled. So I would say clear books are organized, they're accurate, and they are organized in a concise way. I would say messy books, definitely commingling funds, definitely personal and business combined. There is no rhyme or reason to how you are tracking things in your business. So definitely mixing personal with business and really not doing them at all, or no type of organization, no type of structure, no type of bookkeeping foundation at all, I think are all messy books. So your book should be able to go to someone, and if you wanted to apply for a women's certification or some type of like opportunity, your books would be able to go there, and you can rest assured like that they're accurate, versus if they are not right, you would right? So I would say that's the difference between clean books and messy books. And for a lot of us, it's been very hard, I'd say, even for me as an accountant, to like really articulate the value of how important bookkeeping is for your business, because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs look at it as like an afterthought or a compliance thing where you just need the bookkeeping in order to do the taxes. But there's so much more that you can do, and so many more insights that you can have by way of just knowing your numbers.
Mm-hmm. It's so fascinating because one of the things that just popped in my head, and I never thought about this before until you were just talking, I was like, the educator analogy that just popped up for me is like, oh, wait, your books is like the grade book. Like, when you have like 30 kids, 60 kids, I was a high school math teacher, so I had 30 kids per block, and I had 3 to 4 blocks. So we're talking 90 to 120 kids. I gave an exit ticket every day. I gave a quiz every week. I gave a unit assessment at the end of every unit. So all of that had grades. And like, the way you organize that as a teacher, like it has to be organized by student, and then it has to be organized by assignment, and then you're pulling averages for things, where I'm like, as a teacher, as an educator, having a messy grade book is like, girl, what you gonna do with report cards? Like, it is like this like big red like glaring stop sign because of the weight that holds of like, you cannot run grades if you got this messy grade book. And in my head, I'm like, yo, that's like the equivalent to bookkeeping, where it's like, it's literally the grade for your business. Like the data that you get from a P&L statement of your profit margin, your gross margin, net income, your, different expenses, the data and reports that you can run. I'm like, your financial statements are like the equivalent to a grade book as an educator. And I think that is a helpful reframe for people to understand how important it is. Because I realized when I'm like getting into more rooms that are where the average business, the smallest business is 7 figures. I'm like, oh, what I see on Shark Tank of like when they're saying numbers, that's not just like this like TV show facade. Like, that's business, knowing your numbers, of being able to know like your profit margin, how much it costs to acquire a customer, like all that sits in your books. And I don't think people understand how much of a source of power that is to know your books and to be able to speak that language.
And articulate it
100%. 100%. So what does it look like from a partner standpoint? Because one of the missteps that I've seen a lot of people make is like, they get a bookkeeper, and then it's almost like their bookkeeper is like driving the financials of their business. And like, they just get these reports, but they don't look at them. And then I'll go and pull someone's P&L, and I'm like, the way this P&L is structured is not helpful at all. And I'm like, what was your onboarding with the bookkeeper? They were like, I mean, I connected everything to QuickBooks, but I'm like, why do you have these categories? And then why is this tagged under this? And realizing they don't have any type of system for uncategorized transactions to communicate back and forth. So talk to us a little bit around like what should people expect from that bookkeeping relationship that makes it a relationship versus my bookkeeper just gives me statements every month and I may or may not read them.
I think you definitely, you can get what you pay for when it comes to a bookkeeper, for sure. You see a lot of, these online bookkeeping companies where you can just pay this flat fee, this small fee, and they can do things. Really, I would say when you are hiring a bookkeeper, they, depending on who you hire, will not always prioritize the story that you want your books to say. And the reason why is because I think there is historically a sense of entrepreneurs not really understanding the finance side to their business. And so the bookkeeper kind of does it in a way that is standard, but not always standard, but just in ways that it doesn't serve the business owner. So I would say now, especially in the world where we are so much more accessible to like knowledge and the way that things are to look and how we want our books to, or like the stories that our numbers need to tell. I would say that the relationship that you have with your bookkeeper should be serving you in the sense of when you onboard with that bookkeeper should have some type of onboarding system where they are able to have a clear picture of what's going on in your business. Okay. How many bank accounts do you have? What services do you offer or products do you offer? Do you have any contractors? Do you have anybody that's on payroll? What is your business entity? And they use all of those things to really start to structure the P&L. And what I always say in my onboarding calls, especially like within these last few years with seeing how businesses are growing, I always ask, how do you want what would serve you to see the financial statement? So this is our standard. This is what the financial statements look like, but how can we customize this for you to give you the insights that you really need to see on a monthly basis, and then being able to customize them in a way that serves the client? Because when the client has the information, then the client can take that information and they can turn that into something, whether that's information for them to grow the business, information for them to see, okay, this service is doing more than others. I need to do more events because the events are doing more than, when I do my one-on-one coaching. They're able to get those insights, and then they can use those numbers to help them make better decisions. You may think, okay, well, I'm traveling, I'm getting all this money, doing all of these contracts. But if you think about the travel and what you have to spend out, do you truly know what the bottom number is? Mm-hmm. And if your P&L is not set up to be able to tell you that, you really won't quite know how profitable the services you're doing really are.
I think that's so helpful because I think that goes back to like different stages of business. And as people start to get more sophisticated in either their services, their lead gen, or even in doing events, of like part of, a lot of the critical decisions that I have to make, I'm like, we do a lot of events in the business. What's the return on investment? Mm-hmm. And so like, between the cost of the event, of what money does the event actually generate for us, and the only way that becomes clear is how your books are organized. Is there a way to where you can clearly see how your expenses are organized, how your income is organized? And I think part of that, I think what you said is so powerful, is as the bookkeeper, you proactively ask, where a lot of these kind of batch bookkeepers, they don't personalize. It's almost like kind of like a machine of just, come in and spit out a P&L. And it's like, that actually, like, it needs to give you data and insight into your business. So what would you say from a P&L standpoint, what might be like, and you were starting to touch on this, what are 1 to maybe 2 to 3 ways that a business owner would say, I want you to organize my P&L in this way because I want to see this thing?
So what are the ways that they can articulate it?
Yeah. So like what could be ways that someone like organizes a P&L in order, if they want to see certain types of data?
All right. So they could break down all of the revenue by services. So if you are offering, like for me, if I do bookkeeping, I do tax preparation, I do one-on-one advising, instead of my P&L just having all sales or services one line, what I could choose to do to give me more insight is how much do I make in bookkeeping? How much do I make in tax prep? How much do I make in one-on-one advising? And then I can take that and I can be able to see, okay, this is the driver of revenue for my company. You can take it a step further. You can add cost of services or cost of goods sold, where you can put necessary items that's needed for you to deliver that service, right? And so, for example, event income, right? The venue could be the cost of service that you have to be able to see so that you can see, okay, well, what is the bottom line for the income? So I would say those are different ways that you can do it, but there are so many customizations that you can do in the accounting software that can give you some of the insights that you want, like from payroll to contractors and all of that. But I would say those are some really big ones, like really separating your revenue, really separating any cost of goods sold or cost of services to really dial down, like, what is my gross profit after I deliver all the necessary items for me to execute that service.
And if, like, from a sales under the income column,
Yeah.
so like, let's say in a B2, whether it's B2B or B2C, but like the way the payment is going to come in
Yeah.
is going to be under the name of the client.
Yeah.
So what type of systems should someone have with their bookkeeper for a bookkeeper to know, well, if the check says ABC organization or ABC school district, that this was actually a bookkeeping client versus this was a tax preparation client? Like, what's that system look like? So that way the bookkeeper knows how to properly assign things to different services. Hey there, I'm popping in really quickly to make sure that you knew about my 7-Figure Business School. It doesn't happen often, but every once in a while, I teach live for 5 days straight. Baby, I'm still a teacher at heart, and it gives me so much joy to teach about the foundations of a 7-figure business. During the 5 days, I'll teach you how to package your offers, I'll teach you pricing, I'll teach you $1 million sales that aren't salesy, and I'll teach you how to find folks to go and pitch your offers to immediately. So do not wait. Go ahead, head to the show notes, and I want you to click the link to sign up for our next business school. I'll see you there.
Well, you definitely want to make sure that the bookkeeper has access to like your merchant or like your merchant processor. So I would say in that case, if you are getting paid and there's one invoice or something like that, the bookkeeper should have access to be able to see that data so that they can apply the amount to each service, whether that's tax prep or something else. So I would say whatever the merchant is or whatever other data that the client, that the business owner has, the bookkeeper needs to also have it so that they can correctly identify things so that they can categorize it right. Otherwise, it'd be all generalized and then you wouldn't know. So, I mean, it would literally just be like compliance where you're just kind of doing it. And yeah, you can get your taxes filed, but it's not fully serving you because you have not customized it to in a way that can really give you the insights that you need to like truly drive your business in that meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. I think that's helpful as kind of like are you working with a real bookkeeper or not? Like type of like thing of like, what is the onboarding conversation? What types of questions are they asking? So that way they understand your services to be able to categorize them in that way. Versus if they haven't asked any questions around what's the cost of your services? What are your offers? Like, what are your payment plans? And like, how are they going to know how to categorize them if you're organizing by offer? And if they're not asking that question, they can't organize by offer, which means you can't get that data of which of your offers is making the most money because your bookkeeper don't know.
Right. And I cannot begin to tell you how many books I have seen prior to coming to us where, you know, even if you're getting paid from like a merchant like PayPal or Stripe, how many bookkeepers don't even have access to the merchant? They, if you're getting paid, you know, historically, like if you're getting paid from like PayPal, Stripe, Square, even if you're getting paid $100, when it hits your bank account, it's not 100. It's probably what, 97,
Right,
96. They
right,
account for a
right.
fee. I cannot begin to tell you how many books I've seen where it's just $96. There's no account for the fee or anything. So I just think there is a level of care that the bookkeeper needs to have and proactiveness that the bookkeeper needs to have. They should have a solid onboarding asking all of those questions. So if you're being onboarded for bookkeeping and the bookkeeper doesn't ask you any of that, they pretty much just say, hey, connect your bank account and we'll keep going. There's no like, well, what do you provide? Where are your services located? Do you have any contractors that are working with you? Other questions we ask are, how many bank accounts? Are you using any kind of system like Profit First that we need to be aware of? Where are your bank accounts located? Like, we ask a whole lot of questions because really what we're trying to do is create a system internally for ourselves, but also kind of see where you left off when you were either DIYing your books, not having books, or coming from a prior bookkeeper.
So you said something that I never thought about before, and it's like kind of blowing my mind a little bit. This scenario of a bookkeeper not having access to a merchant account. And so therefore they're just coding the deposits and not taking into account merchant fees.
Right.
So what's, just so that way people are clear of like what the impact of that and why that's problematic, like what is the impact of only coding a deposit and completely missing the merchant fee?
Yeah, if you primarily get paid that way, it makes your revenue look less than what it really was because you are just accounting for it after the fact. So, and you're not accounting for the fee that would be an expense on your P&L. So it makes the books wrong. And the consequences to that is one, your income is not correct. It's lower than what you really made. The second piece to that is when you get a 1099 from Stripe, Square, PayPal, after you have filed your taxes with that bookkeeper saying, okay, you made this amount because they're counting it after the fact. The 1099 is going to have the correct amount. And so what that will trigger is it can trigger like it can trigger all kind of stuff with the IRS because the numbers are not right.
Girl, I'm glad you said that. That's good. Okay, what would you say would be a couple of metrics or reports that every CEO or business owner should be working with their bookkeeper in order to access?
Yeah, definitely your profit and loss statement. That's going to tell you what your business brought in for the month, what your business spent out, broken down by expenses. You can pull that for the month. You can pull it year to date. You can pull it for an entire year. You can compare it to your prior year to see how your business did. So I would say your profit and loss for sure. And then you want to do your balance sheet. Your balance sheet is not going to say, your balance sheet is going to tell you a different story. It's going to tell you the running totals of all of the balances on your account. So like all of your assets is going to tell you like what was the running total. So we're now in like whatever the end of the month was, this is what your total bank accounts said. This is how much you had in your checking account, your savings account, any of your actual accounts. And then even like any like debt. So if you have like credit cards, it'll tell you, okay, this was your credit card balance. These were any loans that you had. These are what the balances were. So your balance sheet is going to give you like this holistic picture outside of the P&L of what are all the balances that are in the account, assets or debts, and what did I take out of the business from an owner's draw perspective as well. So the balance sheet is really important. It can be commonly very confusing to a lot of business owners, but I think when you master the real understanding of the balance sheet, it's very critical and very important to look at. And then the statement of cash flows is a really good one as well, where it just tells you from a very holistic perspective what came into your business, minus all of the things that happened on the balance sheet, what the cash balance was, and what it ended at the end of the period. So I would say the three reports is definitely the profit and loss, the balance sheet, and the statement of cash flows. But there's all kind of things. You may want to see, what your outstanding invoices are. Are there any over 30 days, any over 60 days, 90 days? You can pull reports for that. So there's other reports as well, but those are some really common good ones.
And what would be some of your favorite tools when it comes to, from a bookkeeping perspective? What are tools that you're a fan of?
So you definitely want to use some kind of accounting software. So there's many out there. I would definitely recommend QuickBooks is a really good software. Wave is another really good software that you can use, but there's other bookkeeping softwares out there. So you definitely want to choose a software, and then you want to choose a system to hold your documents. That could be something as simple as like a Dropbox, Google Drive, and then you want to that can store any receipts that you have. But yeah, the biggest piece is your accounting software.
Mm-hmm. And from a payroll standpoint,
Oh yeah.
what role, I want you
Yeah.
to talk like tools and software,
Yeah.
but then talk about a bookkeeper's role or relationship with payroll.
So a bookkeeper needs to be able to understand your payroll, because if they don't understand your payroll, your books are not going to be right. So if you have a bookkeeper that says, "Oh, I can't handle your payroll," or anything like that, please run. That is a really bad red flag, because your financials won't be right if they do not understand how payroll integrates with your financials. So payroll, a lot of the softwares now, they integrate directly with your accounting software, so it's unavoidable. And they have to be able to account for it in specific ways to make sure payroll taxes are accounted for, the gross salary is accounted for, any like benefits that were taken out, any reimbursements, all of those things, contractor payments, all of those things have to be separated on the P&L so that you can clearly see, okay, this was the compensation, this was the payroll taxes, this is how much went to retirement or employee benefits, and all of that stuff has to be accounted for from payroll to your accounting software. Is very important.
So good, so good. This was such a juicy conversation. I hope folks were taking notes. If not, replay the thing, like say this thing, go back, look back at all the gems that you were able to drop for us. Where can our audience reach out to you if they want to learn more about your services, your work, if they want to reach out and explore the opportunity for partnership? How can they get in touch?
So you can find me at www.exceptionaltaxservices.com. You can also find me, I have a podcast on Apple and Spotify, The House of CEO. I am on there as well. Substack, Nacondra.substack.com. So those are the main areas that you can find us. Instagram, Exceptional Tax Services. Facebook, Exceptional Tax Services.
Awesome. We will link all of this in the show notes so that way you all, if you have bookkeeping needs, tax preparation needs, tax planning needs, you can reach out to Nacondra and her team, whom absolutely slay in the game. And so thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
And sharing with us all of your wisdom. Thank you for all the things that you've done to be able to support me and folks in our community. Every single person that in our community that has had the opportunity to work with you, they all speak so highly of you, which I already knew, but it just speaks to the impact and the work that you do. So thank you for taking care of me and also taking care of our people. We
Thank you for having
appreciate
me,
it.
Erica.
Yes. All right. So if you have found meaningful, if this episode has been meaningful for you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what your biggest takeaway was, and then share this with an educator friend, because we want to make sure that we are making sure that the seven-figure educator movement is not a secret, and that every single educator has access to a pathway for financial freedom through growing a seven-figure education consulting business. So share with an educator friend, and we will be back here on the next episode of the Seven Figure Educator Podcast. Bye, y'all.